What's going on, guys? We are back with episode 3 of the 0 to 3K series, where I will be trying to pug completely solo on a brand new class and spec as a healer. To check out any episodes that you guys may have missed from this series, there is a playlist that you can click in the top right hand corner of your screen. Also, if you guys haven't already, then be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. If you want to see some of my content live, then be sure to check out my Twitch in the description for WoW live streams of keys and mythic raiding. For some reason, my mic wasn't recording when I went to open up my vault. We are item level 491.5, and the main thing that we are hoping for is to get a piece of tier, and ideally it be anything but pants, since there's a chance that I craft my embellishment in that slot. Other than that, a ring would also be pretty good. We do only have one slot that can be Mythic Plus, so we're really hoping to get pretty lucky. And would you look at that, we got a Hero Track helmet. Overall, a pretty good option, since if we get sockets in future weeks, we can put one into our helmet and one into our Broodkeeper ring. Pretty happy with that, as I think that's one of the best things we could have gotten from our vault. Are you somebody who has aspirations of achieving 3000 Raider.io score? If so, you need to make sure that you are fully focused during your gaming session. One great way to do this is with today's sponsor. I have partnered with Forge, a healthy energy drink made for us gamers. It has nootropics to help you focus, natural caffeine to raise awareness, and is completely free of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and all the bad stuff. It's packed with essential vitamins, electrolytes, and antioxidants. Go to forgeesports.com or click the link in my description and use code Newmen to get 15% off your order. Luckily, today's video is going to be mainly Mythic Plus. Generally, what my plan will be for most episodes is going to be doing either 4 Mythic Plus and 2 LFR bosses, or 8 Mythic Plus dungeons. It really just depends on how my keys go. If we have any levers, it's probably more likely that I will do the 4 Mythic Plus and the 2 LFR bosses. This is so that I can make sure that I can take the tokens, since this season it actually gives you 2 sockets instead of 1. And with the bullion system, you have lots of good items to socket, like the Vault of the Incarnate rings, for example. Obviously, once I have all my sockets, this will not be as big of a deal, but I do want to try to get 3 vault slots up until I reach that point. Before we do our first key, I need to get some consumables, which is going to be the verse file, main stat food, and howling rune. I set my ominous chromatic essence to mastery. I have my current stat values here, and if there are preservation evoker mains here, let me know if I should change it to crit instead, since my mastery is getting pretty high, but who knows, it might just be better to stick with mastery regardless. I started with a +5 Halls of Infusion, because last week the +2 we did was quite easy. This key had a good amount of hiccups, and it could be kind of hard for me to tell the difference between deaths that are caused by my mistakes versus others, since I'm still mostly learning my spec. The one thing that you can control if you don't know your spec super well, how you pilot your character and position. Super simple things go a long way, like dodging frontals, whirlies, and using defensives. If you can try to avoid these things, you will definitely put yourself ahead of the average player at these key levels. Our DK's damage was a bit low, so some of the bosses took a long time. He did let us know that he was new to Unholy, and he usually plays Frost, but also his pet was on passive up until about the first boss. Every boss fight had at least one death, and we wiped to Kajin once, but luckily with only about 40 seconds remaining, we managed to time the key. Something that I thought of is after the key, I can take a quick minute to look at the details death log from the whole dungeon to see if there was something I could have done, like maybe a defensive I could have given to somebody in situations where the damage was predictable, and maybe I could have prevented a death. I have noticed this first week that about 80% of the deaths are from abilities that are doing around 90 to 100% of their health, which is often from projectiles or swirlies, but about 20% of the deaths I would say that I could have fixed with better play. I do expect this to get a lot lower, like maybe 50-50 by the time we get into 10s and above, because players will become a lot better at not dying from these easier mechanics. Since my score is very low at the moment, I had to join pretty much any key I can get an invite to. This really started to show in our next two keys, which had a few glaring problems. First was a +5 Oldman. This key as a healer really scares me on Tyrannical Week because nearly every boss apart from the dwarves is very intensive and requires people to either have respectable amounts of HP, which I would say is about equal to mine or more. Also, if you don't use defensive properly or even at all, there's a very high chance of getting one shot, and I really did struggle in this. Surprisingly, Bromac wasn't too bad, but Sentinel Talendress was where I really hit a wall. I tried my best to hold on to my strongest cooldowns because the boss actually gets harder as the fight goes on. A few of the reasons that caused us to wipe was our Evoker not using their personals and Zephyr, our tank taking a little bit too long to stun the boss with the orbs, and also my positioning. Something that I learned after watching this key back was that even if you don't have the yellow circle around you, it will still spawn an orb under you. For some reason, I haven't really picked up on this just doing this fight on my other characters. I'm not 100% sure what this is based on. It might be who's farthest away, but after finishing this boss, our Ret Paladin actually left on the next trash pull. To be honest, we did have a good amount of deaths, but I'm not really sure why they left because it was just in the middle of a random trash pull. They didn't die and we didn't wipe. But yeah, regardless, I went on to the next key. Next, I joined a +3 Azure Vault. This one honestly won't take too long to explain. We had a Paladin from Ragnaros, which if you don't know is an OCE server. Our group leader wasn't from an OCE server, so our tank was lagging lots. They said they had over 1,000 MS, which is super laggy. They even logged out during the key to try to fix it, but obviously this made the dungeon a lot harder since they couldn't really dodge anything. We wiped on Azure Blade at 0.1% and our tank left with bubble available. But either way, we did have a significant amount of deaths, and honestly, I don't even know if the rest of the dungeon would have been doable with how much they were lagging. Regardless, it was time to join another key. I decided to try Azure Vault again on a +3, and this is where I would meet an important ally. His name was Celestina. He was a feral druid who was a bit more geared than me, but honestly not by too much, and I think he was playing on an alt. This guy clearly had good understanding of his class, did good overall damage, and used his defensives well. Since this key went so well, and as far as I know, he had no idea who I am or the challenge that I'm doing, I asked him if he wanted to queue for some more keys. This is something that I cannot recommend enough for solo players who are trying to reach any goal in Mythic Plus. Ask players that perform well to do more keys, or add them to your friends list. You can make sure that you have even one good other player to depend on, your key success rate will likely double. We queued up and got into a +5 Ruby Life Pools, which was really lucky because this group had a considerable amount of gear and understood every single fight. Our tank was 515 and the rest of our group was about item level 500. There isn't much to say for this key since I noticed a massive difference in how much I even had to actually heal. In the previous keys this week, we always had one player who was really low item level, like 460 to 480. This meant that I was constantly having to heal this player, and they were at a very high chance of just getting one shot. With this key, it really allowed me to focus on a lot of other things that I know I need to work on, like my damage rotation, which as far as I know, is to use Dragon's Breath on CD, then Living Flame on the most important target to kill. Sometimes I'm using Disintegrate, but I think I will need to use that Essence to heal as the keys get higher. We actually 3-chested this key, which was awesome, and I got a helmet, but I already got a tier helmet from my vault, sadly. I needed one more key to get 2 slots in my vault, so we joined a +4 Neltharis. This group wasn't quite as geared, but we did still make it work quite easily. Struggled a lot less on Chargath by trying to time my casted spells like Spirit Bloom and Dragon Breath, which are AoE spells so that they can hopefully top the players as soon as they take damage from the grounding spears, while also trying to make sure to dispel the dragon strike dot as much as I can. Our tank did overpull in the area surrounding Forge Master, which meant that we were a little bit over by about 5% when it was all said and done, but we did still 2-chest the key. This was my final key for the week, but I want to give a huge shout out to Celestina for doing some keys with. Since I now had 2 vault slots, I wanted to kill 2 LFR bosses so that I could get the final vault slot I needed for the week. I joined the second to last wing for Magmarax and Echo of Neltharion. No loot, but now we have all the vault slots ready to go for next week, just in case we have to take sockets. Sadly, this is where I'm going to end off today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. If there's any content that you guys want to see other than pugging challenges, be sure to let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.